Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 365, March 2021 news.
Welcome, citizens of Meeple Nation. For the next 30 minutes, sit back and enjoy.
Meeple Nation Podcast is sponsored by GameToppersLLC.com. Go to their website, check out their amazing product, wait for a few days, and go to Kickstarter and check out their amazing new Kickstarter. Coming out April 20th, they will have Kickstarter 3.0. Kevin has released some amazing previews of their new mats. They have a very cool pirate-themed map. One that I'm really excited about is this Cthulhu one.
Oh, looks so cool.
I'm really excited about this Cthulhu map. And the lava one looks very, very vibrant. Super excited about that. For those of you who might have the Kickstarter 2.0 or newer, which includes you, Andy, my Watsons are the original Kickstarters. No benefit to me here, but to you, Andy, you can get legs for that Minecraft now.
Which I am definitely going to be looking into.
Those look pretty cool. So you don't even need a table. That becomes a game table. Looking at the support that it provides underneath the table, looks really cool. And the other thing that I'm really excited about, dinner covers.
Yeah, those look awesome.
It'll recess a little bit into your Watson so that it won't slide off. Essentially, you could set up a game underneath, put these covers on it. As long as your game doesn't have like tall pieces, you put the cover on top of it. Your game can be set up underneath, serve dinner on top of that, and then as soon as dinner's over, throw off those dishes and uncover that table and get to playing some games.
No longer will it be said, no food on the Watson.
I know.
That will be weird. I would probably still encourage a tablecloth or something. You still don't want to spill stuff on there because they'll go through those cracks. Kickstarter 3.0 kicks off on April 20th, and it looks amazing. There's going to be some giveaways. He has a couple of tables that he's giving away, some mats.
Yeah, so much good stuff.
Well worth your time to look for and back something on Game Topper's Kickstarter 3.0.
Welcome to Meeple Nation. We are your friendly neighborhood hosts. I'm Dave Holliday.
I'm Logan Howard.
I am Andy Holiday.
I'm Nathan Howard.
And this week we're talking March news. We're going to jump into gaming highlights of the month. The other night we played the Harry Potter cooperative deck builder at Andy's house. 2 thumbs up. Thoroughly enjoyed my experience. Only downside with that game, as I was talking about it with Andy and David, is I wish they had more character options to choose from. Besides that perfectly solid game, can't believe I waited so long to play it.
You get more character options with the expansions, so there's 2 expansions. You get, I believe, Ginny Weasley in one of the expansions, and you get to play Luna Lovegood in the second one. It's been a while. It had been maybe, I don't know, a year and a half since we last played, and I'm glad that we pulled that out last Friday. And
Me too. I enjoyed it the first time we played it. I think I enjoyed it more this time. And I appreciated it more this time. I just appreciated how well done it was, really. I mean, as you go, it's kind of legacy-esque. Each play, you add a little bit more.
Because it goes through the years. When you start the game, nobody has special abilities. But I think it's 3rd year, everybody gets an ability. And then we're guessing in 6th year, just because we haven't got to it yet, that our abilities are going to upgrade just a little bit more.
They did a good job of keeping things balanced as new stuff gets added. It got scary a couple of times. We're like, oh, we're going to lose. And then we're able to do it. It's a really good game.
interesting thing is, in order to win, you have to defeat all the villains. After each game, you open a new box, like Logan was saying, of content. And that adds to the available cards that you can purchase and add to your deck. But it also adds new villains. And those villains don't replace the old villains. Those villains get added to previous game's villains. So by the time you get to game 5, you have all the villains from all of the 5 years that you played in the villain deck that you have to defeat.
They're on there at the same time. Game 1, you have one villain that you have to deal with. Once you defeat him, another one replaces it until you've defeated all of them. In Game 5, you have 3 at a time that you have to face.
And each of these villains will have an ability that makes it more difficult for you. It's doing damage to you, or it has some sort of an ability that's going to hurt the players. So the more villains you have out, the more difficult the game is going to be.
And some of the first year villains, they're like not too bad, but there've been a couple times that were like in year 4 or 5 when they come out with combination of villains. You're like, wow, that was just a really sucky turn.
And it's interesting to see those combinations because certain villains together, their powers are just like, oh my gosh, we got to take one of those out quick because this is really going to decimate us if we don't.
That was also one of my highlights Really, my other highlight is I've got a lot of plays in last month. I like that. I like being able to keep track so that I know. And what I've really enjoyed is Nathan and I have been playing a bunch of online games together.
Maybe too much.
That is probably true. However, it's still been enjoyable.
Very much so.
I enjoy the online games and I enjoy playing with Nate. The two together, hey, there we go.
Obviously, Harry Potter Deck Builder was one of my highlights. Another one of my highlights, maybe it's not a highlight, but there's been so many Kickstarters that came and went very quickly this month, and I have spent way too much money.
Hey, you were out of town for a while.
I was out of town for 3 weeks. Being idle and getting lots of overtime, maybe not a good thing. I spent so much money on Kickstarters.
That's the terrible thing when I get a lot of overtime on my break during Kickstarter, and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. Oh, that looks cool. You just find yourself backing them.
That's exactly what I found myself doing, yes. Backing Kickstarter after Kickstarter. And there were a lot of really good Kickstarters that came out of the first month, and unfortunately, they've already ended. We won't be talking much about those. Speaking of me being out of town, we did remote Gloomhaven. Luckily, I was able to remote in, and we still got some Gloomhaven plays in. I'm glad that you guys were able to figure out how to get me
I thought
remoted
it worked
in.
out well, and it was nice to continue to be able to do that.
We did it over Zoom and put a webcam right over the table so it was facing down. With the whole quarantine going on, there was a lot of people that were doing something similar to this.
Certain games do the COVID over Zoom a lot better than others.
For sure.
Having Andy as our only odd player out with Gloomhaven made it a whole lot easier than one person that was in person and everybody else was over Zoom. That would seem like it'd be almost too much work for the one person that was controlling everything.
Yeah.
The couple of people that I followed chats with, that they were trying to do something like that, where one person was hosting the game and trying to manage everybody's moves and everybody's pieces. They didn't last very long in those plays just because it became very excessive for the person managing the game. But there's definitely simpler games that could be.
The local Nug group did a Welcome To. That's a very accessible game, I think, over Zoom.
Actually play that on...
That one works really, really well on BGA.
David and I have played several games. Apparently, I've forgotten how to play the game. We started out pretty level, and then Dave just keeps whooping me. Maybe I just stink at playing games.
One of my other highlights is we brushed the dust off of Pathfinder Adventure Card Game, First Edition, and I have been playing that with my kids over the last weekend.
How have they been enjoying that?
As soon as I got home from work today, can we play before you go do the podcast? They have absolutely been enjoying it. It wasn't my first time playing with them, but they've kind of been bugging me for a couple weeks, pretty much since I got back to play Pathfinder with them. And then I finally got my Deadman Tell No Tales. Logan and I played it.
And I thought it was awesome. I love the game. Can't wait to play it again.
It was good. It's a co-op game. You've attacked and you're successfully boarding a pirate ship, and you find out that these pirates are undead pirates. But you're trying to loot the ship and get off the ship before it explodes. So you're fighting fires, fighting undead pirates, and you have to get a certain number of treasures, depending on the player count, back to your dinghies and back to your boat before your ship explodes or before you run out of pirates, because your pirates can get killed by the undead pirates. And if that happens, then you just pull another pirate out because you have a supply of pirates, and each one's unique with its own power. But if that supply runs out, you lose. I like the fact that there's ways to make it a little more difficult as well.
I don't know if it was just super easy the time that we played it, or if we need to scale it up yet. I'm not sure.
I played it solo and was really close to winning, but I lost. We lucked out that we found the treasures so quickly and close together. I think it just depends on the game. It would be fun to maybe scale it up a little bit and just see how much more difficult it becomes. That was a fun game. And then Star Wars Imperial Assault. We started our game together. In fact, we got James, another friend that comes to game night once in a while. He joined us for it.
We're playing one versus many. The last game we played, it's been a while, so we were a little bit rusty on the rules. I guess more so, I have to be more on top of the rules since I'm playing the Empire. Catching up, trying to get more back into the sync of that. It was a very close game, and we came down to the Rebels winning and the very last possible turn with the very last possible skill check and winning. I thought that was exciting. I thought that was great.
Imperial Assault I've been really impressed with. I do like how balanced it is. The Rebels don't walk away with it all the time. The Imperials don't walk away with it all the time. Some missions are easier for one side or the other. It's competitive, it's exciting, it's nail-biting, it's, ooh, can we do this? And I do like thinking that Nathan's the villain. What can we do to thwart his plans?
And then finally, I have been working on adding all of my games and expansions to BG Stats, and I'm almost done.
And you found out you have like twice as many expansions than base games?
I'm currently sitting at 217 base games and 332 expansions.
Oh, nice. So what's your total game?
Total game is 549.
Wow.
And I am not done.
You're going to have more than me. I currently have 555 games in my list, so...
You've culled a lot of games
I have
over the
culled a
years.
lot of
I'm not
games.
sure Andy Poops has ever culled a game.
I
Did
have
you-
never?
So my question is, when you add these to BG Stats, does that add them to Board Game Geek?
Yes, if you have it linked.
But the main benefit was that if 6 people show up to game night, you can look through your collection on
Right.
the app of what 6-player games do we.
To me, that's a huge benefit.
Instead of just staring at the shelves, well, what about this game? That's only 5 players. Dang it.
Some highlights that I got after we played at New Year's, Andy. Your copy of Flying Goblins. My wife really enjoyed that game, so I picked it up. I got to introduce my youngest daughter and her boyfriend to that game. That was a huge hit. I really enjoy this game. It was a trial to teach the game. The whole time I was talking, goblins were flying everywhere because it's just too much fun to not catapult these goblins. Such a fun, simple game. A lot of laughs. Very enjoyable. Very glad that you purchased that game so that I could add it to my gaming library. Since you guys won't help me with my 10 for 10, I'm playing some of these games solo. I've started playing Isle of Cats solo. It's a very different game playing Isle of Cats solo than it is playing with multiple players. They call it your little sister. You're playing with your little sister, and there's a solo deck. First, you shuffle up the 5 different colored cats. You flip over the first cat. This represents the first. Doesn't factor anything at the beginning of the game, but at the end of the game, that first cat, when you're going to score, and you're going to score little sister's score, you look at your boat, and how many of that first cat are on your boat. Little sister scoring 5 points for each color of that cat on your boat. And then the next color is 4 points. Then 3, and then 2, and then 1. And so that's kind of how Little Sister scores points. And then Little Sister has 3 solo missions if you're playing just the easy version, and I'm yet to win the easy version. There's just 3 solo missions, and again, those solo missions are comparing to your boat. So some of those Little Sister scores 5 points for each rat that you don't have covered, scores points for rooms that you didn't have filled. Those combine to build her score. Your scoring is pretty much normal, with the exception that any of your lessons that you score, you only get half points to help equalize those scores. So I've played it 3 times now solo. Once I only lost by 4 points. But the other time I lost like by 30 points and I lost by 25 points. So it's actually turned out to be kind of challenging. The first time I filled my boat and I was like all excited, and then I lost by 30 points.
That's how I feel whenever I play the game. I got all my missions. Oh, wait. Everybody else got a lot more missions done than I did.
Yeah. Drafting is interesting because you draw 5 cards and you keep 3 of them. Draw 5 new cards, you keep 3 of them. And then you draw a 7th card and you keep that 7th card. That's your hand that you can purchase cards out of. When you're going to try to catch cats, there's a solo basket deck where you flip over that top card. It'll have a couple of things on it. It'll say how many basket cards you're going to flip over, then how fast it's going. So you'll compare yours to that one card. However many baskets are on there, you're going to flip over additional cards. That's how many cats the solo player, little sister, is going to be catching. Bummer side about that is most of those cards, little sister's collecting 2 cats. Everything has to be laid out in a line. So you have like 1, 2, 3, 4 on one side of the island, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 on the other side of the island. That's going to say, okay, little sister takes cat number 2 and cat number 5. Just remove those cats. Then you have the option to try to catch cats with what's remaining. It was very different from the multiplayer game. Very challenging, which I actually enjoy. I didn't want it to be like a cakewalk. Sometimes when you play a game solo, you're playing 2 hands. The AI in it I thought was very challenging. Looking forward to hopefully winning that at some point.
Hopefully that'll be your 10th game that you win.
Hopefully I'll win before 10 games. Another game that I've had for a while but just played recently is one that I introduced Dave to, and then Dave borrowed my copy and never brought it back.
Right, ever.
It's donated.
It's donated to Dave. But it's a really simple game, and it's Cartographers. Dave and I played it late one night, and then we played it 2 more times after that. We played it 3 times when we definitely should have gone home. The great thing about this is there's also an app version, and the app version plays almost identical. In fact, I can't think of any variants. So the solo version of the app is identical to the solo version of the board game. Fairly cheap app purchase. Cartographers, great.
Yeah, it is a good little game. That's one I've been excited about. That's why I borrowed it. My family likes it. We almost played it last night. I almost got Andy and his daughter to play it. Dinner got done a little too soon, so.
Let's talk some gaming news. Asmodee has pulled in and sucked up another company. Asmodee has assimilated Plan B Games. So Plan B Games has Azul, Great Western Trail, the Century Series, Junk Art. So now they will all be under the Asmodee.
But isn't that part of the other news came out? Fresh air being breathed into Great Western Trail?
Great Western Trail is getting redone and re-released. Decided they're actually going to make it a trilogy. And so this was actually before Asmodee picked it up. Plan B had already put this into motion. This year, second edition of Great Western Trail should be released. And then in 2022, there'll be Great Western Trail Argentina. And then in 2023, there'll be Great Western Trail New Zealand. I'm sure each of these versions are going to be a little bit different, but essentially the same overarching theme. You're trying to herd cattle from one place to get them to market to sell.
Which I kind of have mixed feelings about companies like Asmodee buying up the Little Brothers. I'm okay with it as long as there's still fresh concepts being brought out. I think it's Fantasy Flight that has Battlestar Galactica. I think that is just such a shame that they don't do a reprint, second edition of it or something. A lot of people, it's their unicorn game that they're looking for, and they could just fill that gap just by printing it. As long as people are willing to put new content out there for us to absorb, I think I'm okay with it.
We'll have to see what happens. Other new games and new game announcements. There is a new expansion for Clank and Space Adventures Pulse Arcade. Logan and I really like Clank in Space. We find that as our favorite version of Clank. There's new stuff to ransack out of the vault. There's new science to research. You can even clone yourself, so that'd be kind of interesting. Maybe have two versions of yourself out there.
In this version, you're going to set high scores on Lord Erraticus' collection of vintage arcade cabinets and face new settings inside his ship.
6 new modules, which is awesome. Love the variety of setup. Then there's a disguise kit maker to deal with extra clank. Maybe a way to pass on that clank to another player. Maybe avoid receiving that clank.
This is my new favorite. I just saw one of the cards, and it's the Last Star Killer. It's exactly the Last Starfighter. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, must play.
I love the Clink characters like that.
Yes.
They do a really good job with those cards. So there's another one that's coming out. It's called Brew, which I don't really understand the name versus the concept of the game. It's kind of a disconnect.
Well, you're brewing potions to try to balance the climate and balance the forest. Gathering ingredients, making potions. It's the only thing you're doing as far as brewing.
It's a forest. All 4 seasons are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a work placement with dice rolling, a couple other different little elements.
A little bit of area control.
As you're trying to bring the forest back into the balance of a normal forest. The artwork, it looks really fun. It looks like it's going to be an interesting little game.
So another new one that's announced is Dive. Beyond the last continent on the remote island Windbark, diving is an ancestral tradition. During the rite of passage, celebrated at the summer solstice, divers compete to retrieve the sacred stone of the village. The elder throws it from the top of the cliff, and the stone leads the contenders for the title of hero down to the depths of the ocean, aided in their quest by friendly sea turtles and manta rays. So when I first read this, I think of that Oink game, Deep Sea Adventures. Players are sharing the oxygen in the submarine as they dive out to pick up artifacts. Play simultaneously, facing a shuffled deck of 36 transparent ocean cards. I'm intrigued by this. I think this is going to be an interesting concept. The image of the cards lay on top of each other, and like Mystic Veil or Edge of Darkness, these games where they use those transparent cards to have different effects. So I'm interested to see how this is going to work out.
I like the look of the game. I like the setup of it. It has like a table, comes out of the box in the center, and then everybody has their own private screens, kind of hide their stuff. I'm not exactly sure what you're hiding, but I like the idea of it. I like the look of it.
Well, I just like how you have the clear cards. They are all stacked on each other. And I agree with you. It looks like an intriguing game. It looks like it's going to be kind of interesting to play.
Well, on that, let's dive into some new game releases. One that we have coming to us that I'm pretty excited to play is, and yet another campaign game to add to our list of campaign games, and that is Adventure Tactics Damian's Tower. This is a 1 to 5 player game, which that 5 player count is something we tend to look forward to. Although lately it's just been the 4 of us. Now it looks like it's going to be the 5 of us since more and more of us are getting vaccinated. 45 to 90 minutes, kind of our same length for a Gloomhaven session. The ruthless queen rules the kingdom with an iron fist, but an ancient prophecy has emerged which threatens her reign. The adventure starts in your humble village and eventually leads you to the seat of power. It's encountered based, so campaign driven, cooperative, scratching all those same itches that Gloomhaven does. You start off with a basic class through the campaign, extend that, evolve that character, all in an attempt to overthrow the evil queen. Each encounter you level up, unlock over 15 elite classes, so lots to discover, Dave. This is going to be right up all of our alleys.
Yeah.
It looks awesome. I could play a campaign game every single week. Wait, we do.
We pretty much do, yeah.
We do play
Yes.
a campaign game every single week. At least one, sometimes multiples.
And I'm happy doing it. So we already got, but we have not yet been able to actually break out the rules and read them. Maglev Metro.
I'm actually really excited for this Maglev
Me too.
Metro.
It does look really, really cool. That's all I have to say.
Hot take, Dave. One of the games I'm interested in is 10 Suns.
Which we also already have.
Maybe we need to take a break from some campaign games to play some of these games then.
We definitely do.
I'm not
You guys
sure
need
about
to
that.
watch your mouths.
Yeah,
That is
that's
sacrilegious.
kind of...
So 10 Suns, it's kind of mythology. You're an ancient primordial being. The age of gods is coming towards an end. Some earth hunters coming through and killing 10 angry suns, so there's only one sun left. Goal is to try to solidify your power before the hunter kills all the rest of the suns, so there's only one sun left. Make sure that you have enough control of everything going on, so that way you're the one with the most power at the end. It seems very interesting. I like the concept. I like the mythology.
I like it because it's a deduction game. I love where part of the game is you're trying to figure out and solve some mystery in the game. And
Like
so
to throw Nate out the airlock or not?
if there's a point where I can get thrown out the airlock, I think that's great.
Except when you're the only human? Is that when you complain?
I have a reputation. I deserve to be thrown out the airlock, but it doesn't always mean that's the right thing to do. But
I think that's one of my favorite thing about Salem hidden roll game is the fact that the witches can spread and get to pretty much the entire table. It'd be kind of like our last game of Battlestar, but for realsies, where
Where I actually get to play.
yeah,
To play, you won, Dave. It didn't matter what happened.
That's right.
he did get his participation award.
another new one that I'm interested to try is Cubidos. Take on the role of participants in the annual Cube Cup, which is a race of strategy and luck to determine the Cubidos champion. Each player has a runner on the racetrack and a support team, which is represented by all your dice. You roll dice and use those results to move along the racetrack, buy new dice, upgrade those dice, use abilities. Don't push your luck too far. Always a fan of press your luck games. That's Cubidos.
If you did not get a chance to back Tiny Epic Dungeons, it's up for late pledge. They broke all sorts of records with Tiny Epic Dungeons on the Kickstarter. It's one I backed. Super excited for this. In fact, they had to start just releasing digital stretch goals because they had hit their stretch goals so early for physical content. Like, if we do any more, it can't fit in the box. So they started releasing just digital content for stretch goals. I mean, it was overwhelming how many people backed this. It looks great. I love dungeon crawlers anyway. I mean, all of us do. So I'm really excited to see how well they do with Tiny Epic Dungeons. So that one's going to be up for late pledge. Definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, I backed that one too.
Aeon's End, Legacy of Gravehold, is up for late pledge. It says legacy, but is it a real legacy?
It is, yeah. It's a continuation to the Aeon's End legacy. It's the conclusion to the Aeon's End legacy.
Finish our legacy before...
We just have one game left.
We still need to finish.
Yep.
So then we can do this one on top of it.
I thought I only had one game started. Don't we have that at my house too?
My copy is at your house,
And I
and
think-
we've only played one or two. Nate's copy, we have one left. to
We have
finish
some
it.
work to do, Dave.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a physics problem, like Schrodinger's. Am I one game in or...
One game away from finishing.
Yeah, and the answer is yes to both.
At least for David is. So another one that should be open for late pledge. This one just looks super unique, and it's Tiny Turbo Cars. A programming game, so you're racing. Everyone has their own They're basically RC cars. So everyone has their own controller. And it's one of those old puzzles. Do you remember those old puzzles that you're trying to get the numbers in order?
Yep.
So it's like that on your controller. And you're programming what your car's going to do on your turn. And it's all secret. Everyone has their own controller. And it's just the 4 different rows. And it's just the 2 middle rows that you're going to count. You have a time and you're going to get all that programming done. And then everybody flips their controllers over to see what their RC car does. It's just an interesting game. That one's going to be late pledge as well.
Is that one of your Ohio specials?
Yes, that's one of the ones I backed. One of the many I backed while I was in Ohio.
Well, I want to talk about one more new game just played tonight. This is a game that was sent to us by Puzzle Creative, Pirates Mark. They had a Kickstarter a while back, and they're just finishing fulfillment. I think most of their fulfillment is done. So this game should be available out in the wild now. This is a 2 to 10 player game, a pirate game. So I knew Andy was going to like this. Very excited to give this game a shot. More so excited because I think this is a great game that we're going to have a ton of fun with at SaltCon. There's an expansion for it, Purgatory Mode, which then increases that game up to 15 people, which is great. We played a 4-player game twice. Real quick, 10-minute game. I had a lot of fun with it. I definitely see the game shining with a full load. If you're playing with 10 people, 15 people,
I think it'll definitely get a lot of laughs with larger groups.
You shuffle up the cards. You have to have 25 curse cards, 25 luck cards. You shuffle those together, and then you shuffle up with 80 item cards.
You're going to have treasure, which is just a treasure chest full of gold. And there's some that are rubies and jewels and rum. There was a peg leg I saw at one point.
A
and
hook, eye patch.
eye patch. Yeah, a lot of different things.
There's going to be a grid out there of 130 cards in the base game, or if you're including the Purgatory Mode, you're going to have 168 cards in this grid. If I'm the starting player, I'm going to say
10.
And I'm going to say, I'm going to take 10 cards. Don't ever want to pull up a card that's called Pirates Mark. And if I pull up a Pirates Mark, my turn ends and I'm not eliminated from the game. I'm removed from bidding.
So after you bid, then it passes to me. My only option is to outbid you and say, well, if you think you can do 10 cards, I can do 11. Arr.
Or 15.
Anything more, right? It has to be at least one higher.
Except the person that can't call your bluff is the person that's after you. So like in our play order where it goes, Nathan said he did 10, and then David said, I can do 15. Arrgh! With me being next, I can't say, I don't believe you, David. But that would open up for Nathan and Andy to be able to call his bluff before I say I can do something more.
If I call your bluff, say, Dave, you can't do 15, then at that point, you have to begin flipping over cards.
Flipping cards one at a time.
If you flip over those item cards, those are great. You just pull those aside, put them in your pool. Pull a curse card. Some of those curses can cause you to pull more cards, get rid of some of your luck cards. Some of those cards can even kill you. If you're dead, then you are removed from the game. There's one card out there that will allow a player to bring back a dead character. But you're just going to go around this table. The 4 of us, we still had a ton of fun. But when you get down to 2 people who are in the game that don't have the pirate mark, then you go into what's called duel mode. The normal game stops, and those players who are active are going to start flipping over cards one at a time. It goes till the last person who doesn't have a pirate mark is the winner. When it goes to duel mode, there is a chance for any pirate who has been marked to jump back in by calling the Kiss of Death. If I call the Kiss of Death, I'm predicting in the next 3 turns, one player is going to flip over a pirate's mark. And if they flip it over, I'm back in the game. But if they don't, then I'm dead.
Kiss of Death will be more fun to watch with more players as well. I mean, you're going to have more pirate marks in the pile on the table, so your chances of an actual pirate mark getting called or getting pulled are a lot higher with multiple players. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, just that aspect alone. That only happened once in our plays, and it didn't work out. Still so many cards on the table. The chances of a mark getting pulled at that point, pretty low. Once you get below 10 cards on the table, you can't call Kiss of Death anymore. You want to time it right. In the first game, it got pulled when there were still a lot of cards on the table.
Yeah.
In the second game, there were fewer cards on the table than we had previously. There were still more than 10, well more than 10.
It'll be a lot more interesting with more players.
Spot on. When you play this with a full boat, this game is going to be hysterical.
I think maybe you should have said with a full ship.
That's Pirates Mark. Look for it. Any party night that you're having where you're going to have more than 6, 7 people. Great game to pull out. Short time limit, ton of fun, ton of laughs. I'm looking forward to playing it at SaltCon or our next barbecue. I think it's a game that is going to get played a lot here.
Actually, a fun party game, which is rare.
It's rare for Andy to say. Well, that's the news.
Until next time.
We'll see you playing some new games and hopefully avoiding that pirate mark.
Good luck, matey.